Hey guys. Detention. Some things you just can't explain. You don't even try. You don't know where to start. All your sentences would jumble up like a giant knot if you opened your mouth. Any words you would use come out wrong. Jack, this is very, very serious, Mr. Tishman was saying. I was in his office sitting on a chair across from his desk and looking at this picture of a pumpkin on the wall behind him. Kids get expelled for this kind of thing, Jack. I know you're a good kid and I don't want that to happen, but you have to explain yourself. This is so not like you, Jack, said Mom. She had come from work as soon as they called her. I could tell she was going back and forth between being really mad and really surprised. I thought you and Julian were friends, said Mr. Tishman. We're not friends, I said. My arms were crossed in front of me. But to punch someone in the mouth, Jack? Said Mom, raising her voice. I mean, what were you thinking? She looked at Mr. Tishman. Honestly, he's never hit anyone before. He's just not like that. Julian's mouth was bleeding, Jack, said Mr. Tishman. You knocked out a tooth. Did you know that? It was just a baby tooth, I said. Jack, said Mom, shaking her head. That's what Nurse Molly said. You're missing the point, Mom yelled. I just want to know why, said Mr. Tishman, raising his shoulders. It'll just make everything worse, I sighed. Just tell me, Jack. I shrugged and I didn't say anything. I just couldn't. If I told him that Julian had called August a freak, then he'd go talk to Julian about it. Then Julian would tell him how I had badmouthed August too, and everybody would find out about it. Jack, said Mom. I started to cry. I'm sorry. Mr. Tishman raised his eyebrows and nodded, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he kind of blew on his hands, like you do when you're cold, when your hands are cold. Jack, he said, I don't really know what to say here. I mean, you punched a kid. We have rules about that kind of thing, you know? Automatic expulsion. And you're not even trying to explain yourself. I was crying a lot by now. And the second Mom put her arms around me, I started to bawl. Let's, said Mr. Tishman, taking his glasses off to clean them. Let's do this, Jack. We're out for winter break as of next week anyway. How about you stay home for the rest of this week, and then after winter break, you'll come back, and everything will be fresh and brand new. Clean slate, so to speak. Am I being suspended? I sniffed. Well, he said, shrugging, technically, yes, but it's only for a couple days. And I'll tell you what, while you're at home, you take the time to think about what's happened. And if you want to write me a letter explaining what happened and to Julian apologizing, then we won't even put any of this in your permanent record, okay? You go home and talk about it with your mom and dad, and maybe in the morning you'll figure it out a bit more. That sounds like a plan, Mr. Tishman, said Mom, nodding. Thank you. Everything is going to be okay, said Mr. Tishman, walking over to the door, which was closed. I know you're a nice kid, Jack, and I know that sometimes even nice kids do dumb things, right? He opened the door. Thank you for being so understanding, said Mom, shaking his hand at the door. No problem. He leaned over and told her something quietly that I couldn't hear. I know, thank you, said Mom, nodding. So, kiddo, he said to me, putting his hands on my shoulders, think about what you've done, okay? And have a great holiday. Happy Chanukah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa. I wiped my nose on my sleeve and started walking out the door. Say thank you to Mr. Tishman, said Mom, tapping my shoulder. I stopped and turned around, but I couldn't look at him. Thank you, Mr. Tishman, I said. Bye, Jack, he answered. Then I walked out the door. Season's greetings. Weirdly enough, when we got back home and Mom brought in the mail, there were holiday cards from both Julian's family and August's family. Julian's holiday card was a picture of Julian wearing a tie, looking like he was about to go to the opera or something. August's holiday card was of a cute old dog wearing reindeer antlers, a red nose, and red booties. There was a cartoon bubble above the dog's head that read, Ho, 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 and on the inside of the card it read, To the Will family, peace on earth, love Nate, Isabel, Olivia, August, and Daisy. Cute card, huh? I said to Mom, who had hardly said a word to me all the way home. I think she honestly just didn't know what to say. That must be their dog, I said. Do you want to tell me what's going on inside your head, Jack? She answered me seriously. I bet you they put a picture of their dog on the card every year, I said. She took the card from my hand and looked at the picture carefully. Then she raised her eyebrow and her shoulders and gave me the card back. We're very lucky, Jack. There's so much we take for granted. I know, I said. I knew what she was talking about without her having to say it. I heard that Julian's mom actually photoshopped August's face out of the class picture when she got it. She gave a copy to a couple of the other moms. That's just awful, said Mom. People are just, they're not always so great. I know. Is that why you hit Julian? No. And then I told her why I punched Julian. And I told her that August was my ex-friend now. And I told her about Halloween. Okay, so this next part is text messages and letters and emails, I think. Dear Mr. Tishman, letters, emails, Facebook, text is what it's called. Dear Mr. Tishman, I am very, very sorry for punching Julian. It was very, very wrong for me to do that. I am writing a letter to him to tell him that too. If it's okay, I would really rather not tell you why I did it because it doesn't really make it right anyway. Also, I would rather not make Julian get in trouble for having said something he should not have said. Very sincerely, Jack Will. Dear Julian, I'm very, very, very sorry for hitting you. It was wrong of me. I hope you're okay. I hope your grown-up tooth grows in fast. Mine always do. Sincerely, Jack Will. Dear Jack, thank you so much for the letter. One thing I've learned after being a middle school director for 20 years, there are almost always more than two sides to every story. Although I don't know the details, I have an inkling about what may have sparked the confrontation with Julian. While nothing justifies striking another student, ever, I also know good friends are sometimes worth defending. This has been a tough year for a lot of students, as the first year of middle school usually is. Keep up the good work and keep being the fine boy we all know you are. All the best. Lewis Tishman, middle school director. So this is to Mr. Tishman about Jack Will. Dear Mr. Tishman, I spoke with Amanda and John Will yesterday, and they expressed their regret at Jack's having punched our son Julian in the mouth. I am writing to let you know that my husband and I support your decision to allow Jack to return to Beecher Prep after a 2-day suspension. Although I think hitting a child would be valid grounds for expulsion in other schools, I agree such extreme measures aren't warranted here. We have known the Will family since our boys were in kindergarten and are confident that every measure will be taken to ensure this won't happen again. To that end, I wonder if Jack's unexpectedly behavior might have a result of too much pressure being placed on his young shoulders. I am speaking specifically of the new child with special needs that both Jack and Julian were asked to befriend. In retrospect, and having now seen the child in question at various school functions and in-class pictures, I think it may have been too much to ask of our children to be able to process all that. Certainly when Julian mentioned he was having a hard time befriending the boy, we told him he was off the hook in that regard. We think the transition to middle school is hard enough without having to place greater burdens or hardships on these young, impressionable minds. I should also mention that as a member of the school board, I was a little disturbed that more consideration was not given during this child's application process to the fact that Beecher Prep is not an inclusion school. There are many parents, myself included, who questioned the decision to let this child into our school at all. At the very least, I am somewhat troubled that this child was not held to the same stringent application standards, i.e. interview, that the rest of the incoming students were. Best, Melissa Perper Albans. This is to her from Mr. Tishman. Dear Mrs. Albans, thank you for the email outlining your concerns. Were I not convinced that Jack Will is extremely sorry for his actions, and were I cannot confident that he would not repeat these actions, rest assured that I would not be allowing him back at Beecher Prep. As far as your other concerns regarding our new student, August, please note that he does not have special needs. He is neither disabled, handicapped, nor developmentally delayed in any way, so there was no reason to assume anyone would take issue with his admittance to Beecher Prep, whether it is an inclusion school or not. In terms of our application process, the admissions director and I both felt it within our right to hold the interview off-site at August Homes for reasons that are obvious. We felt that this slight break in protocol was warranted, but in no way prejudicial in one way or another to the application review. August is an extremely good student and has secured the friendships of some truly exceptional young people, including Jack Will. At the beginning of the school year, when I enlisted certain children to be a welcoming committee to August, I did so as a way of easing this transition into a school environment. I did not think asking these children to be especially kind to a new student would be any extra burdens or hardships on them. In fact, I thought it would teach them a thing or two about empathy and friendship and loyalty. As it turns out, Jack Will didn't need to learn any of these virtues. He already had them in abundance. Thank you again for being in touch. Sincerely, Mr. Tushman. And I'm going to stop there with the emails because we're already at 11 minutes. But the next one is to Melissa from Jack Will.